Okay, so I mentioned the BBC debate between Johnson and Corbyn. At least the bit I saw covered the NHS and national security, both very important questions. But a young guy towards the end asked about, as he put it, anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in the two respective parties, and why, um, and what could the leaders do to reduce hate in politics? Um, I want to talk a little bit about this. I already addressed in another video my thoughts on the anti-Semitism thing. And just to briefly lay that out, I do think that Labour has a serious problem with individuals who buy into anti-Jewish worldviews, conspiracy theories, and outright vitriol. I think there is a unique problem with anti-Semitism that is different from other types of bigotry in the sense that it has been consistent throughout history. And there is a unique emphasis on the Jews and Jewish world control that you do not hear with other minority people. For example, you do not hear about the Muslims control the financial systems, the black people control the financial systems, and so on. So I do think there is a specifically vindictive attitude about anti-Semitism, and I do think it's a problem within Labour ranks. Um, I don't think that Corbyn is personally anti-Semitic, but I don't think he has done enough to distance himself from anti-Semites. And as a result, I don't think his handling of this has been great. Yes, Labour people accused of it are being investigated, and in some cases have had to resign. But I don't think that 80% of British Jews thereabouts can be dismissed as being paranoid. I think there's a real problem here. That having been said, I want to talk more about the Islamophobia thing because it's something that I've mentioned before, and it's something that really concerns me as a concept. Does anti-Muslim bigotry exist in society? I think it does. I think we have seen examples of hate crimes perpetrated against Muslims because they are Muslims. Although there have also been examples of cases of alleged, for example, hijab ripping assaults, which later transpired to be total fiction. Or in some cases, there was a situation in Birmingham where Shia extremists had actually arson mosques, and it was initially put down to the far right. It turned out that this was an internal sectarianism. That's an area that really needs to be looked at because I think it's probably a festering problem that will only get worse if left unchecked within our society. I mean, it's already a massive problem in Islamic countries. But on the issue of Islamophobia, so-called Islamophobia, Johnson is virtue signalling a bit, and I know why he's doing it. He wants to say, "Oh, look, Labour can't get me on this. I'm a man of action. I'm condemning it. I've apologised for what I said, etc." The whole letterboxes thing, it was a bit flippant and maybe undiplomatic, but I really dislike the way the left distorted that because they made out that Johnson was stirring up hatred against Muslim women. Now, it was a bit flippant. It wasn't particularly diplomatic, but he was actually advocating against a ban on burqas. And the way the left keep parroting to that, again, it gets into an issue of where do they lie on it, Islamist extremism. I know many left-wing people who know this is a problem, right? So I'm not saying the whole monolithic left is in denial about the threat of pan-Islamism, but I do think there are too many on the regressive left, and I would include Corbyn with this, that will not acknowledge the problem. He will not by name call it what it is, Islamist ideology. Now, when we're talking about little girls being forced to wear the hijab, or very real issues of indoctrination going on in faith schools, for example, the Trojan horse scandal in Birmingham, um, there are things we need to talk about that go beyond just terrorism. Terrorism is kind of the vicious, brutal face of Islamist extremism, but it isn't the only face. And it sickens me, to be quite honest, the moral cowardice that the regressive left show when it comes to this issue. I mean, it's moral cowardice because in some cases they're in a position where they are in positions of power and they need to speak out and they're not doing it because they want to be politically correct. And I'm irritated with Johnson for kind of endorsing the term. What Johnson should have said was, where there are examples of anti-Muslim bigotry in my party, I will stamp it out. But by using the term Islamophobia, he's therefore justifying it. I would like to see a politician who actually turns around and says, well, look, I will address anti-Muslim sentiments, but I have a problem with the term Islamophobia because it can be used to silence legitimate debate, because that's exactly what it's being used for. I mean, we've just seen a situation whereby the leaders of three Muslim majority countries, Turkey, Malaysia, and the third eludes me right now, but it was three Muslim countries actually trying to, in fact, they were, I think the concept was they wanted to launch a TV channel to combat so-called Islamophobia. Yeah, it was Pakistan. Oh, how can I forget Pakistan? Pakistan, Malaysia, and Turkey wanted to have an initiative to combat so-called Islamophobia. Now, to talk about that, the very idea of Islamophobia in a Muslim majority country where there is rampant persecution of minorities, nobody, nobody in democratic secular societies should even be humouring this idea. And in my view, they should be actively rebuking these sentiments. But once again, it comes down to if we have trade ties to these countries, we turn a blind eye, which is sickening. It's bad enough that rampant persecution happens within Muslim countries. You know, like the young couple, I don't know if they were together or they were two separate cases. Two young people flogged to the point, one man, one woman, flogged to the point where they were unconscious in Aceh. Look at the case in Brunei earlier this year. Wherever there is rigid Islamic law, there is savage human rights abuses. That's a fact. And I'm so sick and tired of the political correctness around Islam. Criticizing, even hating Islam, Islamic dogma, is not the same as hating Muslims. It's not the same as stirring up hatred against Muslims. And I'm sick and tired of the moral cowardice the West continues to show on this issue. I think we've improved slightly in that talking about Islamism isn't necessarily taboo in itself, but there is still a knee-jerk reaction from too many on the left that, oh, it's dog whistle, you're attacking Muslims. It infuriates me. They need to wake up. They really, really need to wake up and recognize that there's ideology behind this. And those Muslims who say terrorists have no religion, they're part of the problem because they are actually trying to silence debate as well. They care more about the image of Islam than they do about the atrocities committed in its name. And if you want to blame foreign policy, how does that explain the fact that Sri Lanka, a country that has no military involvement in the Middle East, witnessed a brutal attack earlier this year, the Easter bombings? So the regressive left are being fundamentally dishonest. They're being cowardly by not recognizing this moral threat. And the irony, of course, is it threatens the very sort of causes they traditionally claim to be all about: women's rights, gay rights, opposing religious conservatism. Yet when it comes to Islam, oh, we can't do that because it's a minority religion. We want to be politically correct. It really disgusts me, to be quite honest. Um, we need a lot more honesty around this, which means that talking about Islamic fundamentalism and Islamic extremism, anyone who automatically has this knee-jerk reaction, oh, it's dog whistle, you're being Islamophobic, needs to be robustly challenged on that. Whether it be Muslim apologists or whether it be the regressive left. I'm not going to say the left. I know there are left-wing people who know it's a problem. I'm talking about the regressive left. Islamophobia is a nonsense term invented to try and stifle legitimate criticism of Islamic fundamentalism. Talking about Islamic fundamentalism should not result in being smeared as a bigot. It really actually enrages me because Islamists are going to do what they're going to do. They have an agenda. But the regressive left, the only reason they do it is to virtue signal because Muslims are a minority, therefore criticizing Islamic fundamentalism. They associate with bigotry. They associate with the far right. The far right get galvanized when the issues are ignored. The far right get galvanized when the ideology of pan-Islamist extremism is ignored and isn't spoken about. Corbyn won't speak about it, nor will others associate with the regressive left. So I really have a problem with that.